During his final years as a vice president of the United States, Democratic nominee Joe Biden argued for tackling the violence and poverty in Central and South America that was causing large numbers of migrants to flee to the U.S. He even helped convince Congress to pass a $750 million aid package for the region back in 2015. But if elected next week, would his policy look the same? Well, we have Washington Post correspondent Arelis Hernandez joining us from Texas to break this down. So first of all, Biden and his team of foreign policy advisors have created plans for Latin America that look very different from Trump's more hardball approach. Break down these plans for us and his main goals here.
Yeah, so what Biden has proposed on his website is a $4 billion actually aid package, sort of a return to this soft diplomacy and trying to tackle what Biden calls the roots of migration and instability in Latin America. And towards throughout his time as vice president, Biden actually had developed quite a few relationships in Latin America. He visited often and is counting on these relationships to sort of bridge some of the gaps that they see in relations with Latin America, specifically in those countries where we don't have a lot of good relations, places like Venezuela or Nicaragua or Bolivia at this point. Also, part of that package is to sort of bridge that gap between having platitudes and also applying pressure to Latin America. Promoting democracy, which has always been sort of the American standard of foreign diplomacy, and also climate change is a big part of that package. It would be interesting to see how he does it, but the idea would be to apply more pressure, particularly to Brazil, to stop deforestation that is affecting the global warming epidemic that we see.
Now, how does this differ from Trump's approach to Latin America?
So I think it depends on who you ask, but Trump's sort of, as you mentioned, hardball approach, which I think is the term that the New York Times employed, has been one of threats, has been one of, sort of waiving tariffs or economic sanctions towards countries that are antagonistic towards the United States or who have or for whom the president wants, something out of them, for example, like Mexico and stopping migration. But it's sort of been twofold, right? His focus on Latin America has been divided on Venezuela and migration and stopping migrants through Central America, and in Venezuela affecting some kind of regime change. As we've seen in some cases, on Venezuela, that regime change hasn't happened despite bringing, Juan Guaido, who was sort of the figurehead of the opposition government, to his State of the Union address.
Now, much of Biden's plans with Latin America seem to seek to revive old Obama-era efforts, but many accuse Obama of having been too conciliatory and pragmatic in his foreign relations, which made the U.S. lose leverage and influence. Why do critics say this, and could we see Biden facing a similar issue when it comes to foreign policy with Latin America?
No, absolutely. I think Obama tried to start a new page, right, with Latin America at the very beginning, to throw out the Monroe Doctrine and to normalize relations, for example, with a place like Cuba or other places. And I think what started off as sort of a promising endeavor disappointed a lot of Latin Americanists and historians who were watching what was taking place and ended up being a policy of neglect. One of the things that the Biden administration is going to have to watch carefully is how they deal with the influence of other foreign powers such as China and Russia and Iran, who have, upped their influence in the region during the time that both Obama and currently President Trump have been focused elsewhere.
Now, quick answer here. This obviously may be hard to generalize, but for the most part in Latin America, how are Trump and Biden viewed? Obviously, this is a big region.
I think it would depend on who you ask. If you were to ask Jair Bolsonaro, he's a big friend of President Trump's and for the most part has enjoyed his support. If you were to ask, Nicolas Maduro, the people who support him in Venezuela, it would be a totally different answer. So I really think it depends on which country you're talking about.
Of